It is my very great pleasure to welcome Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal, Ali Henderson, Chief Executive of the Royal National Children's Springboard Foundation, my father Andy Fairweather, Mrs. Price, and all of you here tonight. After a tumultuous couple of years, I must say it's fantastic to see so many members of our close-knit Benenden community here this evening. I would like to kick things off by thanking Mrs. Price for inviting me to take part in this discussion on bursaries. My name is Elizabeth Fairweather, and this initiative is so important to me, and I'm proud to be here tonight, as I was a beneficiary of a Benenden bursary for 7 years, from 2013 to 2020. The format for this evening is very simple. After my introduction, we are lucky enough to have a keynote address from Ali Henderson. Following that, we'll move straight into our panel discussion. We'll then share with you for the very first time our new Benenden bursary campaign video. And then following that, guests will be invited through to either the Great Hall or the library for drinks, canapes, and bowl food. So, why are bursaries so important to me? In 2012, I had a plan, and I was working really hard to achieve it. I wanted to gain entry into one of my local grammar schools by taking the 11+. However, I was unable to achieve the maths grade needed for this entry, despite my other grades greatly exceeding what was required. After feeling lost and hopeless, I decided to set my sights on a new dream, which initially seemed unattainable. However, Benenden was there for me wholeheartedly, and it is for this reason that giving back to the school and the community, which means so much to me, is so important. So without further ado, I will now hand over to Ali Henderson to give her keynote address. Ali, over to you.
Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for asking me to speak today. I wanted to start briefly with a story. On the far left of this picture here is Nazifa. Nazifa I met in 2018 when I first started working for Royal National Children's Springboard Foundation, or RNCSF for short. She was sitting in an interview chair in a church hall in Tottenham, trying to explain what she thought a boarding school was like. And although she didn't go on to attend Benenden, her story is like so many others, a number of whom are studying at Benenden today. From a nervous 15-year-old girl, she threw herself into all that boarding school had to offer. She put it very well when she spoke to our alumni back in July last year, and in her inimitable words, I can't do better than what she said. She said, "Boarding school helped me to realise that you don't necessarily have to be a product of your environment. Growing up in North London, it's hard to miss the gang culture, and it's even easier to get involved in it. But getting a bursary to attend a boarding school not only helped me to become more independent, and definitely prepared me for moving away to university, but more importantly, it showed my community that hard work and dedication can lead to great things, regardless of your home postcode." Bursaries change lives, so I was really delighted that Sam asked me to speak to you today, both to celebrate the impact of the bursary scheme to date, but also to look ahead and to think about the school's ambitious plans to significantly widen access to what we know is a really extraordinary environment at Benenden. This debate has never felt more relevant or more important as we emerge from the last 18 months. There are 9 million school-aged children in the UK today, and a staggering 3.1 million of those are growing up trapped in the cycle of poverty. So that's 9 pupils in every classroom in the UK today. And this cycle of poverty has a massive effect on educational outcomes. I mean, that's not just worth saying, but let's think it through. For the young people that we come across, being hungry with no safe or quiet space to concentrate, being worried often about the challenges your immediate caregivers, your often single parent or extended family are facing, being worried about the risks you face in walking to and from school, make it really, really hard to do well at school. And the other fact that we emerge out of this is that of those 9 million children, just 600,000 of them are able currently to access an independent school education. And that 7% figure, has understandably drawn attention and scrutiny over the years, but also more recently, the fact that of those 600,000, only 1% are currently on a full fee-assisted place. So just 6,000 young people are on full-fee bursaries given poverty or disadvantage. And of those 6,000, only 600 are able to access the power of a boarding education and everything that we know that 24/7 round-the-clock community offers by way of happy, safe and thriving environments. So these facts feel uncomfortable, to say the least, to so many of us. And this government, in particular, has made it a political priority to see a shift on the part of the sector, to find more schools like Benenden seeking to shift from that 1% to more like 5% of their pupil roll on full fee-assisted places. As RNCSF, we've been at this for quite some time. We've supported many schools like Benenden who are deeply committed to setting aside more places for children facing really challenging circumstances. RNCF, the Royal National Children's Foundation, whose royal patronage we benefit from today, with Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal, very active support to our work. They've been identifying young people for whom a boarding school bursary can change their life in various incarnations since 1827. So we know this works. In the last 10 years alone, we've worked with more than 120 boarding schools, and all of those schools are united in that commitment to widen access and to build more diversity into their pupil role. And they do that partly because they see at first hand the real power of a boarding education, but they also do it because they want to be more diverse, more relevant, more inclusive, more interesting environments for all of the young people that they educate. And they also recognise that bursary award holders bring so many benefits to the pupil community as well. What we know from the 930 young people who've been able to access an RNCSF bursary in the last decade is that they love it. They settle and thrive, and our retention rate, which is those that continue through to the intended end of their school journey, has hovered at consistently around 96%. So that's testimony mostly to the brilliance of these schools, but also to the really impressive qualities of all of the young people who've seized those opportunities. We're frequently amazed at the progress that we see, the resilience that we observe, the determination that shines through all of those bursary award holders. We stay in close contact with them as they progress through their schools, and they leave with self-confidence, they leave with excitement about the possibilities of the future, a willingness to embrace change, and a really strong sense of their role to play in promoting social mobility through whatever means that takes. Of our recent leavers, 90% have progressed on to university, which is a pretty extraordinary figure when you consider that this is the trajectory of only 26% of disadvantaged pupils who take A-levels. So there are medics, there are Oxbridge students, there are engineers, there are teachers, there are journalists, but it's not only their destinations that give us cause for hope about bursaries making a significant impact on social mobility. It's also their journeys. I wanted to share a recent school report we received in December from one Headmistress, which I think just really brings alive what so many of our pupils offer. She said, from the moment she arrived, it was evident that she was determined to make the most of every opportunity, not only here in the house, but in the wider school community too. She's been an amazing role model for the younger girls, seizing all the help and support on offer, and being a perceptive, tactful mentor to her peers. And I say that, and she's not alone, it just shows the powerful effect that bursary award holders can have on those around them. And this powerful effect extends also to those in their home communities. So the way that we work is very much in partnership. To identify young people, we work with community organisations from some of the most deprived areas in the UK, from Peckham in South London through to Liverpool, Stoke-on-Trent, Nottingham, across the UK. And that network of community partners, they help us to be really confident that we are targeting the opportunities at the young people facing the greatest risks, those least likely to be on this path. But they also help provide a really important safety net and scaffolding as the pupils transition between school and holidays. But crucially, they also provide an infrastructure for the young person to act as a role model to others. So RNCSF bursary award holders will return to their community partner in holiday and act as a role model in those community, as a mentor, as an ambassador, as what one described to me as a visible representation of ambition and aspiration. Continually in my job, I spend a lot of time listening to the naysayers who say that bursaries are only one very small drop in the ocean. And how can we possibly claim that we're having an effect on social mobility? Well, the ripple effect of that small drop has been profound. Our NCSF students are powerful ambassadors of ambition. They're an extraordinary movement of role models. They're proud of their experiences, but they're collectively acting as a force for good. If we can realise our goal to see 5% of every boarding school's domestic pupil role set aside for children facing complex challenges at home, that will be more than 1,000 young people in school at any one time. That's a pretty powerful movement of young people. And we know that they will have had the education, and they certainly got the leadership capabilities to go on to become the next High Court judges, the next editor-in-chief of major newspapers, doctors, chairs of their local primary school, head teachers of the future. They tell us that they want to ensure that the landscape of modern Britain better represents the vibrancy of modern Britain. And we know that they've got the capacity to do that. Benenden's been a hugely important part of our journey to date. The experience of our NCSF pupils at Benenden has been nothing short of amazing. They have settled well, and they have given as much to their school community as their school community gives to them. We're really excited about the impact that we can have in partnership together as an engine for good, changing lives of many more girls like Nazifa, but en route being a real engine for social mobility. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. That was really fascinating and an amazing way of setting the scene for the discussion we're just about to have. So, Sam, starting with you, it must make you really proud to hear Ali talk about the role that schools such as Benenden are having on bursary participants' lives up and down the country. Why are bursaries so important?
Well, I think sort of talking of pride, and I think, Lizzie, seeing you here this evening is probably one of the most powerful things that I've seen during my time as a head, and to have one of our bursary recipients coming back, you're still at university, and supporting what we want to do into the future is the reason actually why this is so important. So I want to start by just saying how proud I am of you and how grateful I am to you and of course to your dad for being here this evening. But am I proud that this is what independent schools want to do? Yes, I am, but I think we have a moral obligation to do it. And our target, as Ali was saying, is 5% across all independent schools at the moment. And yes, that is what we're aiming for at Benenden. To be honest with you, Ali, I wish it could be so much higher. When I hear your statistics of the 3 million young people who are still struggling in this country to be able to receive what they need financially and the education that they need more broadly, I find it heartbreaking. And what we're trying to do is we want to try to place 1,000 students across all of our schools into schools like ours. And it is a drop in the ocean, but as you were saying so powerfully, is that if every young person who experiences one of our bursaries is able to then go back into their community and go and show their community what opportunities are about and what they can achieve, that has a huge impact. And of course, running a girls' school, I think even more so, because young women going back into their communities, they are role models, really strong role models for what girls can go on to do. So yes, I am proud, but I wish we could make that target so much higher. But we have to take this step by step.
So where is Benenden's bursary programme today, and what is its vision for the future?
So our bursary programme at the moment is actually, it's not in a bad place at all. It's something that we started at the school in 2005, and we currently have 8 students who are on free places at the school. Every single place, of course, has to be fully funded, so financially that's quite a challenge for us as a school, because we don't benefit from the endowments, of course, of the big boys' schools and the big co-ed schools, so everything for us is very much hand-to-mouth in that regard. But our ambition is to be able to double that. We want to hit that 5% target that Ali was talking about, and by the end of 2024 we want to have 24 Benenden students on completely free places so that we are in a position to be able to transform their lives. Beyond 2024, we're looking further afield to 2030, and we want to increase that number again. In an ideal world, we'd like to be in a position where we've got at least 10% of Benenden students on free places.
So why is it important to work with organisations like the Royal National Children's Springboard Foundation to identify these bursary candidates?
It's hugely important, and I have to say it's almost transformational, because I think where we were at before we started to work with you, Ali, was we were reaching really just a sort of 10 miles around Benenden, and of course, Lizzie, that was you. But to be able to broaden that means that we can go further into some very deprived areas of the UK to be able to identify students who are going to be able to benefit from being with us. But what the organisation is able to do is they are able to understand who we are and to be able to find the girls who are the right fit for Benenden, and girls who are going to be able to come here and be happy and be able to thrive whilst they're with us. Because I think we mustn't underestimate that for a young person coming into this sort of environment, it must be also incredibly daunting. And therefore, if that culture that young person is going into is the right one for them, that's going to make a huge difference to their whole experience. And so far, I think we've done really, really well as a partnership.
So Ali, I wonder if you might be able to add a little bit more to this.
I suppose only that, yes, as Sam said, this point about targeting is really crucial for the sector as a whole to be able to tell a much better story about where these opportunities are being prioritised for, because there aren't many. I mean, even 1,000 young people in school at any one time is nothing like the 3.1 million in poverty. So how do you make sure you're targeting those for young people in areas where actually you can't commute to a state school within a walkable distance that has a good or outstanding rating, where there are high rates of child poverty? But equally, beyond the identification piece, the partnership, I hope, really benefits Benenden, because we take care in advance of the young person arriving to do a really careful preparation for boarding. So each young person will be in a cohort of 12, 15 others from their home postcode, all going off to different schools, but who know each other and have that continuity as a network of support to each other. And we help to transition between the two worlds to make sure that when they arrive, actually, they've been well prepared.
So you must have a lot of applicants for bursaries. How do you decide who ought to benefit from a bursary place?
We do, but we partly make sure that we never raise any expectations. So we only embark on a partnership in a community when we know we have the places available to us, and that's the power of the network of 120 participating schools. So we'll approach an area, and our latest, for example, is Stoke-on-Trent, and we'll say we think we may have 5 or 6 opportunities for somebody from your area. And we will ask the organisations in that place who best know those young people, those that are facing the greatest risks, to triage that for us. We'll test for things in interview like an independence, a degree of independence, a degree of resilience, a degree of go-getting attitude, and certainly sort of effort and enthusiasm for learning. But beyond that, we're not seeking to cherry-pick the brightest. We're seeking to find those young people who lack the opportunities and who will grab them when they arrive at those schools.
Lovely. And to quote an RNCSF report, every child deserves the chance to fulfil their potential and achieve the best educational outcomes possible, whatever their background and whatever their path. How much of an impact can a bursary have on an individual recipient over a 2, 5 or 7 year period?
Okay. So I think, we know from our impact data that the opportunity to attend a boarding school for 5 or 7 years is a completely different transformative journey than those that can attend just for the 2 years of sixth form. But that aside, that you can also have extraordinary value add in that 2-year journey of a sixth form placement. So it's not the case that it has to be at the younger years. It is the case that having obviously access to opportunities for your entire secondary school life is transformative. We also know that starting at year 7 or year 9 or joining at 11 or 13, the transition to make friendships can be easier. We talked about that, didn't we, earlier today, about there are fewer cliques, that kids are kids, and actually pretty blind to where you've come from at that age. We know from our sixth form entrants that can be a little bit more challenging, but we also know from our impact data, and we're about to publish some research in a few weeks' time, that the academic journey that our sixth form entrants can take is, on average, they gain 12 months of learning compared to their peers. So access to that real excellence of teaching and learning it's still a journey that can be really transformative for the sixth form entrants too. Does that sort of answer your question?
Perfectly. Yeah. And why would you say Benenden is ideally suited to providing bursaries?
I mean, I've had the fortune of visiting, but I haven't been there, and you'll know better than I do. I'm left with a really strong impression from my visit and from the girls that I know who are there about just the vibrancy of what's happening there all the time. It's so busy, so much on offer, so many things, something for everybody. Never time to feel homesick, or perhaps early on, but not once you get your feet under the table. And kindness, a huge amount of kindness comes through in the friendships that our NCSF bursary award holders have made. So I'd say kindness, busyness, and certainly, we know academically that teaching and learning environment, is an extraordinary opportunity.
It really is. Your Royal Highness, what do you see as the benefits to society of placing bursary students in independent schools such as Benenden?
Since I've been involved with the Royal National Children's Foundation, which was a little bit earlier when it was still the Royal Wanstead, it was very obvious that these were families that had suffered from major disruption, and it was the children who were really suffering. And sometimes that was single parents, sometimes they lost both their parents, and that could have been as a result of an accident, illness, some other disruptive event in their lives. So I think the first thing that I would say is stability, because it gave the young person the chance to just settle and do what they wanted, which was to learn, but to have the stability to do that and not be worried either on their own behalf or on the behalf of the family, because that situation was really taking over their ability to be at school, to learn. So I think stability is the key word I would suggest is the advantage of those bursaries. And for many, it's the whole school life, but for sometimes it's only a short-term thing. But it can still make the difference because it provides that opportunity to settle and to be stable for a bit in what is otherwise a very disrupted family environment. And if you can offer that for longer, so much the better. That's the real thrill if you can do that. And talking and listening to those young people who come from really, very difficult situations, both in the sense that they've been caring for their adults in their family, which has been hugely disruptive to their lives, the benefits that they felt that stability has offered them and the experience that they've been able to gain from it. But from the school's perspective, for the pupils already there, it adds to that importance of treating each individual as an individual on their own basis, and to understand that it's the individual who's important. And you learn about that as you go on, not to make assumptions on what happened before.
I couldn't agree more. And Your Royal Highness, how would you say your extensive work with children's causes over so many years has influenced your view on this type of bursary initiative?
Well, part of it, I suppose, was being at the school, but the other part was the key motivation behind the Save the Children from their founder, Eglantine Jebb, for whom education was the key. And she found it very difficult to understand why children didn't get to stay at school when she was doing her teacher training in a rural school outside Marlborough. But she followed them home, so she discovered that it wasn't because the children chose not to come to school, it was because the environment in which they were, they either had to work, they had to look after somebody, they were ill, and it was all those things. But her main interest was that if they didn't have that opportunity to learn, wouldn't have the opportunity to change their lives. And that's just as relevant today as it ever has been. And hopefully, I know you quote poverty slightly more often than I would choose to, but because I don't think they're coming from quite that difficult backgrounds, but for each individual family, it can be just as disruptive and difficult for those young people to learn. So that's still the key, is to offer them that real ability to learn, and in an environment which encourages them to do so. Because let's face it, not every young person totally sees the point of education. They come later rather than earlier. And I think that's something that schools have to understand as well and find ways of making it work. And one of the advantages of schools like Benenden is it can do that.
Lovely. So Sam, just back to you. We've heard how bursary pupils are identified and matched to schools where they're most likely to flourish. How does Benenden support those girls and their families?
So that journey starts from before the girls even are offered a place at the school. So we invite students to come and to have a morning to get to know the school and to be able to talk to the senior management team and to hear other students' experiences. We then invite them to go through the application process. And obviously sort of the admissions office are going to be supporting all the questions that you're inevitably going to be asking as your child is going through those tests. Once we've offered a place, at that point we then start to really engage with individual families. We will assign a student to her boarding house, and essentially then we're sort of handing over from admissions to the boarding house. And then the HM, that's the housemistress or the housemaster, will be then in regular contact with the girls' parents. But then we'll also have a current bursary student who will then get in contact with one of the girls who's going to be joining in September, and again sort of welcoming them into the community. But that journey, when the girl is here, it's with her housemistress, it's with her tutor, it's with her big sister, of course, that's her sixth former, who you will remember, who will keep a sharp eye on her as well. And then, of course, our deputy head of boarding and pastoral, who will make sure that all of her needs are being met too. So it's a network of support. Actually, it's the same support that we give to every girl at the school. And there'll be always going to be different times when all students may need a little bit of extra support, and other times where we just keep a distant eye on them, but we know that they're doing very well. And I think, Lizzie, that was you, actually.
So, Dad, I'd like to bring you in on this point. How would you describe our experience of initially joining the school and then becoming part of the community?
Well, when you were accepted onto the 11 Plus bursary programme, I had to go into school and meet the then bursar, who was a beautiful gentleman called Nick Allen. And Nick looked me straight in the eye, stuck his hand out, and he said, "Welcome to the Benenden family." And never a truer sentence has been uttered. It's been like that ever since and still remains to this day. I remember your induction day as if it was yesterday, and the three other girls that were in your little dorm, all of which you're still in contact with today. We met some wonderful parents that day. Your HM and matron were absolutely superb and inclusive in the way we were involved in the school and the whole house system. We then went to 2 Gen Day and met lifelong friends who some are here tonight. And in fact, some of them even I work with now in the voluntary sector, which is great. It's really been a life's journey and experience. And because the school was so warm and welcoming and family-like, and we also wanted to be there for you, we did get quite heavily involved in school life, being house reps, joining the Parents Association, and in fact, meeting all of the subsequent, for 5 or 6 years, 11 plus bursary parents that might be slightly apprehensive about what the whole experience was going to be like. So yes, we've had a ball.
And what would you say to the families that are considering applying to a bursary at Benenden?
Well, clearly there's unfortunately never going to be enough spaces for people that would be great on a bursary, and of course there will be people that it is not right for as well. But to give an example of why I think Benenden and looking at bursary education should be at the forefront of parents' ideas when looking at secondary education. And the reason for that is, and I'd like to sort of run an experience by you. 2 months ago, we sat on a small panel in front of the sixth form at Benenden with 4 recent Benenden seniors, all of whom were recipients of bursary awards, 2 at 11, 2 in the sixth form. Now, the first girl was the head girl at Benenden, and now a highly successful businesswoman. The second young lady is currently reading law and criminology at Birmingham. The third is reading English at Cambridge, and the fourth is hosting the event tonight, and in her second year of medicine at King's. So I'd just like to say, if there is a glass ceiling, the bursary girls at Benenden are smashing through it.
So Lizzie, can I ask you a question? Can you reflect back on your experiences at Benenden?
I really couldn't agree with my father more. So from my first day when I entered the doors of Benenden, I was greeted by a massive boarding house team. And for me, the person that really stuck out to me was Mr. Humphrey, my housemaster. And he was always such a supportive, caring figure throughout my whole time at Benenden. He helped ease all of my struggles along the way, and I'd say I even managed to avoid homesickness slightly better than my peers. And this support and care of the whole Benenden environment never ended throughout my whole time at the school, or even looking towards my future at university. I've always been a very hard-working person, but I think I've sometimes struggled with confidence in my own abilities, and that completely changed in the Benenden environment where I met the careers team. And they said to me, you can do medicine, you can do this. If you believe in yourself and you do the hard work, you can do this. And I truly owe it to them that I'm now in one of Britain's top medical schools studying medicine. And without that Benenden environment, I truly don't believe I could be here today.
So there are different views, aren't there, as to whether bursary students want to be recognised as being bursary students or not. And in your experience, were you quite open with other students about the fact that you were on a full bursary?
I'd say in my first year, I was slightly cautious of telling people. I worried maybe people would think I was weird or, I don't know, just poor. So I didn't really want to tell anyone. But then after that, I became more and more open about it throughout my years. And I realised that no one cared, and if anything, they were interested and wanted to know how my experience had been and what they could maybe do in the future to help. And I think for me, it really showed that being open about the bursary campaign and the bursary scheme is the most important thing for the progression of it.
And of course, it's really important for the school as a whole to have a real diversity within the student body as well, and to recognise that the composition that the girls are going to go out into when they go into the world is going to be full of very, 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 very varied people, but also from really different backgrounds too. And I think it's, as Ali was saying earlier, when you get young people together, they don't care where their backgrounds are from. At the end of the day, you're all young people and you're all thinking to your futures as well. My sort of next question to you is, and we haven't asked, is you've talked about your degree that you're working very hard towards at the moment. What's it like, and did we prepare you well enough for it?
I think I was really, really well prepared from the Benenden environment and my experience there. Obviously, nothing can quite prepare you fully for a 6-year medical degree in a London university and the complications that come with that. 8 hours of studying most days, hospital placements, managing and picking up new hobbies. It is a lot, but I managed to have confidence and independence already instilled in me from my time in Benenden, which I feel like really helped support me throughout my time at university so far. And I'd say the main thing for me is that Benenden instilled in me a love for academic excellence and a love for learning, which I brought with me to university and I really hope to continue to have for the rest of my future.
And did we help you in terms of being able to manage time and prioritise?
Definitely. At Benenden, I feel like your level of support, they start to slow it down as you go through the years, so you can become slowly more and more independent. And I think that from that, I started building my own timetables, understanding when I need to do things like cook, do my own laundry, because you have to do those things in sixth form. And I think that really, really prepared me for university life, where I would have to look after myself.
Excellent, thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Please do.
Sorry to go off a bit of a tangent here. But we've been talking about the academic side of it. But what about the other bits of it, the extracurricular activities? Did you find those helped, the sort of interests that you had that helped you sort of fit in?
Definitely. So, thank you, Your Royal Highness. I mainly focused while at Benenden on something called Model United Nations, which was all about public speaking, which is why I'm just about confident enough to be up here today. And I'd say that that definitely helped me prepare for life. Also, I really enjoyed taking part in drama. I wasn't the best at sport, but I definitely enjoyed it, and it's encouraged me to also keep at sport while at university. And I think having all of these hobbies within the environment not only let you meet new people, have time with people of different age groups was a massive thing for me, because without those hobbies I don't think I would have seen people who are older and younger so easily. But they also prepare you later for in life to find out what really are your passions and what do you want to continue at.
Thanks so much.
So it was a complete education.
There are other things.
So another question for you, Ali. Following on from that and your earlier speech, obviously the hope is that each bursary has both a lifelong and societal impact. How do you measure that success?
Measuring the success is really important to us. It's really crucial for our schools to be able to access some of that impact data. We obviously will reflect on the academic journey, and I've talked about some of the statistics around progression to university. But just as Your Royal Highness said, we actually also do a lot of work around impact stats about the benefits of the stability. So the benefits of, for example, building trusted relationships. We have a range of tools that we monitor behind the scenes where we watch young people's growing in their independence, in their resilience, in their trust of self and their trust of others. And for young people who faced a lot of disruption, those are really key indicators of a young person that's going to emerge as an adult with strong sense of self-worth and ability to go on to fulfilling future careers. So our impact data follows, as I say, the academic. It follows the less quantifiable, but which we can quantify around trust and independence. And we also follow all of our alumni through to at least the age of 25. And we will follow the impact that they are having as role models, whether that's by virtue of them being a mentor to another young person going through the programme, or going back into their old schools to talk about their journey, or for some of our looked after children or young carers, it's talking to other young carers about how to navigate some of those challenges. So our impact report, which we publish every 3 years, is one that our schools, we hope is very useful to our schools as a way of demonstrating to donors and to parents the impact that this has at a macro level as well as at the individual level.
Okay. And so just to conclude, Sam, one last question for you. So we've heard how bursaries really do transform lives and your plans for the bursary campaign. What can the members of the Benenden community do to help?
Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to now look at our audience. You are, of course, going to be receiving sort of plenty of communication about our campaign. If I can ask anything of you in this room tonight, it would be to go and spread the word about what we're trying to achieve here over the course of an immediate future, the next couple of years, but also more broadly, and why this campaign is so important to us as a school community. If everyone in this room tonight can positively go and spread the word, it's going to get round our whole community quickly, and then I would be very, very hopeful that together we can actually achieve these targets. If you feel that you're in a position to be able to make a donation and to financially support us, and you may want to be one of our lead donors, or even that you may want to support us in a much smaller way, or perhaps to offer us a donation over a period of time, anything that you can do to help us to achieve that goal will be hugely, hugely appreciated. So we will be in contact with you. We're not going to be putting you under pressure. Hopefully we're inspiring you to get behind what we need to do in order to achieve that 24 free places, or those 24 free places by the end of 2024.
Thank you. And do we have any time for questions from the audience? No. Okay.
We have no time for questions, is that?
We've probably got a bit of time for a couple of questions.
We have got time for a couple of questions. Perfect. Lizzie.
So are there any questions from the audience?
Very good.
Sorry, I have just one question. It's all, one side of it is definitely obviously identifying children who have this difficult background for one way or another. But when you're looking at young carers in particular, obviously offering them a bursary to go to even the most amazing school, which I think Benenden is, that's only one side of it, because what you're actually doing is you're taking away a resource within the family to look after whoever they were looking after. So how is that sort of incorporated into this, this award? Or
should I?
If you would
yes,
yes, please.
It's a really important part of what we do as a charity, which is that no child will start their placement unless their care arrangements are really clear. So if you're a young carer, that means the care arrangements for the person that you were caring for. And what that looks like in practice is months of us behind the scenes talking to the local authority and other charities to see who's going to fill that gap. But we start from the premise that young people shouldn't be the ones filling that gap when they are in term time. But we recognise the challenges they are nonetheless under, and often they are when they arrive at their boarding houses. They remain very conscious and concerned about what's happening back at home. By working in partnership with a charity that does this at scale, what I hope we can reassure schools is we understand some of those pressures. We work in partnership with charities that understand those pressures. A good example is the Young Carers Development Trust, who provide a lot of young people referred through our programme, and they will help us to make sure those care arrangements are in place before the young person starts at the school.
Thank you.
No, so you're all right.
What does a full bursary actually cover? Is it just fees? Or, you have extensive uniformist activities at weekends?
So it's what we call 110% bursary. So it's the full fees plus 10%, and that's to cover uniform, it's to cover other things that the girls need, and sometimes it will also cover a couple of trips during their time. We have also supported some families with tickets, for example, for the Leavers Ball, or a girl buying her dress for the Leavers Ball. In fact, one of the matrons made one of the girls her dress for the Leavers Ball there, and so on. But we could make sure that her family could come. So that's what the additional 10% is. So it is quite a commitment. So if you're looking at seeing one student through on our current fees at the moment, which are around sort of £40,000 a year, and you're looking at that student going right through the 7 years, it is obviously a commitment, but it's a transformational opportunity for that girl.
Ali, I have a question for you. Circling back to what you said about giving people from a variety of places in the UK a position in a school like Benenden, although you didn't mention any places in Scotland or Wales, is this something that you're hoping to include in the future? Because personally, I think it would be a very good opportunity to include, people from further than Nottingham. I've got, further north. We need to think about everyone. Is this something that is already part of the initiative, or is this something you're hoping to pursue going forwards?
So we do have a large number of young people that we've supported who are Scottish, and we have some great partnerships with Scottish schools, and many of those Scottish schools will ask to make sure that the young people we refer are Scottish. So I couldn't tell you the figures off the top of my head, but I know there are a large number in the programme. There are fewer in Wales, actually, interestingly. We've sought partnerships in the north of Wales, and they haven't yet come to fruition. We've got a really strong partnership due to come on board with with an organisation that's working in Glasgow that will start in September 23. But as I say, that hasn't stopped us from helping a number of, particularly those that have faced significant social care experience from accessing the opportunities who are Scottish.
I think that has to be our last question.
Lovely. So that brings us to the end of what I think we can all agree has been a really fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for coming. And just prior for us to having some refreshments, we'll conclude this part of the evening by sharing for the very first time the Benenden Be the Change campaign video. I really hope you like it.
It was the best day of my life. I'm not even exaggerating. I remember writing it down in that evening. My mum got the email on her laptop but our Wi-Fi is really slow, so she only saw the title, which was something like Hetty's Bursary.
Education and outstanding education should be available to any child in this country.
I just remember the letter coming in, and I opened the letter and I was like, you've been offered a place to study at Benenden, and I was so ecstatic. I remember posting it online to my friends, and I was just so proud of myself that I've been able to achieve this dream.
Schools such as ours need to be in a position of being able to offer free places so that students within our local area, or more broadly if that's further away, have that chance to be able to receive an outstanding education if they can't on their own doorstep.
And it's a lottery with the comprehensive system around here if you don't get into grammar school education, and Benenden offered a different opportunity, and thank goodness we took it.
I will have a number of pupils who are applying for bursaries, and I'm only in a position to be able to offer one, possibly two of those free places on an annual basis. And therefore I'm turning away students who are academically more than capable of being able to come here and thrive, but probably more importantly, I'm turning away girls who would absolutely benefit from being in a boarding environment such as this with all the opportunities.
The first time I went, I remember it was like all my family packed in one car, like coming to drop me off, which was quite like nerve-wracking, but everyone was so friendly.
All the students and all the staff are so supportive of you, and they're really non-judgmental, which I think really helps with confidence.
She got a house mother, she got a big sister. It was just so easy for her. She just blended in. So it was really a good process.
I just started to make friends immediately and get to know everyone here, and it was just like a beautiful, community that I was let into that I really liked.
And you just kind of are instantly drawn into this tight-knit community, and it just felt like a place that could be a family.
It is really a complete education. They're learning from day one, they're learning every day, even when they don't realise it, whether that be social skills, interpersonal skills, professional skills, educationally. They just grow and blossom as an individual and come out as very confident, aspirational young women.
And I'd say it's the extracurriculars and things like that which you get to experience that help build your confidence alongside your learning. We had squash courts, we had tennis courts, basketball was available, football, rugby, lacrosse, athletics, everything. There was so much to do and so much to choose from, and it really helped me kind of engage in sporting activities when I never really had before.
I've done so many things since I've been here. I've really taken everything I could do and just applied myself to it. If I've seen something that I've liked doing, I've been like, yes, I will go. I will write for Word Factory. I will apply to build the plane. I will do this swimming, and I will do this netball, and I will do this lacrosse. And I was like, no, I'm not a quitter. I'll be doing everything. I'll be picking up everything.
There are so many opportunities to speak out in front of a load of people. You kind of have to learn to keep calm and not panic under the pressure. But there are so many people there to help you, so even if you do start to be nervous or anything, they won't make fun of you and they'll just help you, and everybody's just so nice.
I've been involved in the drama production, which I don't think I would have ever done before because I never used to have the confidence, but since being here, I don't know, I'm like a whole different person. I'm now studying a 6-year course of medicine, which is obviously a really long commitment, and I think Benenden really helped me make sure that that's what I wanted to do.
I like to think that, yes, on my own merits, I might have done Cambridge, but honestly, I don't think that I would have seen it as feasible if I hadn't been here, and if I hadn't had this kind of supportive community that was like, Oxbridge is an option for you. And you seem like a Cambridge student, I feel like you'd fit in there.
Oh, she's been saying, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a doctor, but ever since getting to Benenden, she's been saying, I want to be a pediatrician, Mom. I want to be a pediatrician. I love kids. I've seen a lot of transition in her. We wouldn't have been able, if not for the bursary. I mean, it's life-changing. That's just the word, it's life-changing. Mimi, in our church community, younger children coming up to her, how she did it, how she got the opportunity and all that. They sort of look up to her, And like I said, her younger brother also looks up to her. and he's also saying he wants a bursary, and we've applied for him as well.
What's really powerful about that is if you've got one student and perhaps is the first child in that area to then end up going to university, when that child then goes back to their own environment, they can be a fantastic influence and a fantastic role model on the whole of their area. That creates a sense of aspiration, it creates a sense of ambition.
I remember teachers really believing that I could do well and do something with my life, and that will stick with me.
So I never knew what I wanted to do in the future at all, but since being here, it's kind of given me a clearer understanding of my passions. So I think in the future I want to go into music, and I never thought I would have ever done that.
I'd really like to be a paediatrician because I've always wanted to help people and I really love little children.
I think I would like to actually go down the route of like politics, maybe like join a think tank later on in life, or help with legislation in Parliament. I think I would like to see more representation of young black women like me.
Well, I mean, it's meant the world. I mean, Elizabeth's now a second-year student at medical school. You know, it's totally changed her life and shaped her future.
One of the key benefits of a bursary programme in any school is to promote social mobility. It closes the gap, and it means that, so I might go on and be able to fund a bursary for another student, and I might be able to send my kids to a private school without requiring a bursary, and that's such an improvement for me personally, but that improvement can benefit other people.
We currently have 8 girls on free places, full free places here at Benenden. It is our aspiration that by 23-24 we triple that to 24 girls, which is an incredible journey for us if we're able to achieve that. To do that, we have to be able to raise £5 million over the next few years, because if we can, and we're in a position to be able to offer those 24 free places, we are going to be transforming lives.
Unfortunately, not everyone has the financial capability to attend such a beautiful school like Benenden, and I believe they have resources which other schools unfortunately don't have.
The best thing you could do is donate to the bursary campaign. It honestly changes someone's life completely, it puts them on a completely new path and really helps to shape their future.
In many ways it's a duty of private schools to help other students who would thrive in the same way that I did.
All contributions, regardless of size, big or small, are hugely gratefully received because every contribution will make a difference.
I would say you can really change a life. You can offer a girl an opportunity and a start in life that has no bounds. They can literally go anywhere from here.
If I have the means, I would definitely 100% do it. Knowing how I've benefited, how my daughter has benefited from it.
Benenden benefits just as much from bursary girls as girls on bursaries benefit from being at Benenden.
I think Benenden's all about experiences, opening the doors that probably wouldn't have been opened otherwise, and I really felt that I got to experience that in its full effect.